Thank you, everybody, for coming out today. My name is Bruce Counts. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Lithoquest Diamonds. I think we're one of the few grassroots exploration stories here presenting today. I will start with a forward-looking statement. This is really my opportunity to remind people that we are a grassroots exploration company, so very high risk. And just to keep that in mind as we go forward and I talk about the company, I think it's important. The corollary of this, of course, is with high risk, you also have the potential for very high reward. As I mentioned, we're a grassroots explorer for diamonds. We are in Western Australia. We formed this company just a little over 2 years ago, specifically to acquire and explore this project. We had some very interesting results that we wanted to follow up on, and the project has really proven to move or sort of reflect what our initial thinking was. And we've already made our first discovery. But because the company was formed specifically to acquire and explore this project, we have 100% of the project. There are no underlying royalties. We have a very large land position. We were the first mover in the area. Of course, we're in Australia, which is a very favorable jurisdiction, inspires a lot of confidence in the financial community. We have excellent access. There's a seasonal road to the project, and we're also located on tidewater. Because the company's new, we actually have only been trading for just about under a year. The share structure is still very tight. And we have significant ownership in management, as well as some very supportive shareholders, and we'll get into that in a bit. I think it's a good idea to talk a little bit about the diamond industry in general. And one of the things that's most important is to look at the sort of production profile of the diamond mines that are out there. The producers are looking at the diminishment of their resources as they move forward. And this is a graph put together by Bain & Company, which shows how those resources and assets are diminishing. So we're seeing a lot of the diamond mines, some of the larger and more profitable diamond mines, come offline. And so those producers are now looking to replace those resources. Importantly, very few exploration companies are actually active looking for diamonds. It's a tough space, and of course we've seen a very tough exploration market, so the funding for diamond exploration has been thin, and that means that a very thin crowd of diamond explorers out there actually looking for new assets. One of the most important mines out there, and one that's very close to our project, is called Argyle. And Argyle's owned by Rio Tinto. Argyle, at least at one point in its life, produced 40% of the diamonds by volume that were mined in the world. So that mine is scheduled to come offline in the next few years. So there's a very large reduction in the amount of diamonds that are being produced just with the removal of the Argyle diamond mine. Well, what does success look like in diamonds? This is a chart of Diamet Minerals. Diamet had a minority stake, a 29% interest in what became Canada's first diamond mine. And this is sort of the holy grail for diamond miners. This is what we all aspire to achieve. If you look at this project, or the company itself, it had the 29% stake in the project. Its stock went from 65 cents to $65 in a matter of 18 months. And that was through the exploration and discovery phase where the diamond-bearing rocks were being discovered and the number of diamonds and the quality of diamonds were being evaluated. The company was purchased by the major company that owned the project, BHP, in 2001 for $800 million. And the mine itself was very profitable. It was about a $900 million capital expenditure to build the mine, and that was paid back in a little over 18 months. So the project was making $600 million in profit. And this is a mine that's located in the Canadian Arctic, some 300 kilometers north of the nearest community of Yellowknife. It's a fly-in, fly-out operation with a very short winter road, and they were still managing to make $600 million a year in profit. So if you can find one of these things, they can be extremely profitable. Okay, a little bit about diamonds and where they come from. So the primary source for diamond is a rock called Kimberlite. And a Kimberlite is just a very rare type of volcano that brings the diamonds to surface. And one of the interesting things about Kimberlites is that they almost always occur in clusters. A cluster or a field of kimberlites might be just a few kimberlites, or it might be more than 100. For example, at Ekati, again, there are 150 kimberlites in that field. Approximately 8% of those kimberlites are economic. So one of the important things when you're exploring for diamonds and you find yourself in a field of kimberlites is to be able to look and find all of those kimberlites and evaluate them to find which are the ones that are likely to be economic. In those 150 kimberlites at Ekati, almost all of them had some content of diamond, but again, about 8% were economic. So when we're exploring for diamonds, obviously diamonds are the ultimate indicator mineral, if you will, but kimberlites have a very unique suite of minerals which are called kimberlite indicator minerals, and they occur in much greater concentrations. So as an explorer, one of the things that you focus in on and look for is what's called kimberlite indicator minerals, and that tells you that there are kimberlites around. But perhaps more importantly, if you look at the chemical composition of those indicator minerals, you can tell something about whether or not the kimberlite has actually passed through the zone in the mantle where carbon is stable as diamond. And so that becomes very important as an explorer, is to look at that chemical composition. And the chemical compositions we're seeing on the project in Western Australia are some of the best I've seen in my career in 25 years. And I was part of the team that discovered the Ekati diamond mine. And I keep bringing up Ekati partly because that was part of my experience, but also there are some aspects of this project which I find very reminiscent of that project, including the mineral chemistry of the kimberlite indicator minerals. Okay, so a little bit about how you evaluate a kimberlite for diamonds. This is a fairly important part because most of the value that you see added in a diamond exploration project are added in the first few stages. So the target testing, which is where we are, and the mini bulk sampling. Diamonds occur in very small concentrations in a kimberlite. Ekati, again, has 1 carat of diamond per ton of rock. That equates to 0.2 grams of diamond per ton. So it's a very minute quantity. In the first instance, when you've discovered a kimberlite, you take about a 200 kilo sample is ideal, and what you're trying to do is recover what are called microdiamonds. So these are very small diamonds, and it just gives you an indication of how diamond-bearing the kimberlite might be. It also gives you some indication of whether or not you might have some larger stones. If you have a favorable result, you'll move on to what's called the mini bulk testing stage. And there you're trying to collect somewhere between 50 and 200 tons of material, and that will allow you to recover a population of macrodiamonds, or diamonds that you can see. We can take those off to Antwerp and have that valued, and then you get your first indications of what your value per ton will be. Again, when we looked at that chart of Diamet stock where it went from 65 cents to $65 over an 18-month period, that's really in these first 2 stages of target testing and mini bulk sampling where you add the greatest amount of value. Well, a little bit about our land position. As I mentioned, we're in northwestern Australia. We're very well located. We have a seasonal road access to the project. We're also right on tidewater. The project itself has a little over 1,500 square kilometers, and we were the first movers on this project, as you can see. We have since had competitive companies come in and stake all around us, which is very encouraging to us, but that is really based on some of the discovery and the information that we've been able to generate with our exploration. The other important part, and it's been mentioned by the other explorers here, is to have a good relationship with the Indigenous people. We have already a very solid agreement with the traditional owners in the area, and they have been participating in all of our exploration projects so far. So a very good relationship, even at this early stage. As I mentioned, the company is very new. We started trading just a little under a year ago, just under a year ago on November the 29th of 2017. At that time, we raised $5 million. We still have about $2 million left in our treasury, and we used that money to go out and do our first exploration program. We have just over 46 million shares outstanding, and we have some very supportive shareholders. Many of you may have heard of Eric Sprott. He owns about 10% of our project, or our company, I should say. And Rosso Asset Management, which is run by a fellow named Warren Irwin, owns about 15%. And both of these gentlemen have agreed to continue to support the company and have requested that they be able to maintain their 25% interest as we go forward on any future financings. I won't spend a lot of time talking about the leadership here. I myself have been in diamonds since 1992. As I mentioned, I was part of the team that discovered the Ekati diamond mine. That's in northern Canada. But I think one of the important things I'd like to make the point here is that we are an early stage company. And so one of the things that I've focused on is making sure that our overhead is very low so that our capital goes into the ground and into exploration. I am the only full-time employee. The other employees of the company or people that work with the company are contractors, and so our overhead is very low. As I mentioned, we formed the company specifically to acquire and explore this project, and we did so because we had seen some very compelling evidence that there was a field of kimberlites, diamond-bearing kimberlites, on this project. And there's a lot of evidence out there already from previous explorers that this was the case. As you can see, there are some gem quality diamonds that had been pulled out. That's represented by the stars here. And actually that where you're seeing those stars and those red dots, those are the red dots are our targets. That's actually a plateau. And in this part of Australia, you've had no glaciation. So the only thing moving diamonds and rocks around here are wind and water. And up on top of that plateau, if you have diamonds, there's really no way to get those diamonds up there except to have a kimberlite shedding those diamonds into the local environment, or certainly that's the most logical explanation. So that was pretty compelling evidence that there are kimberlites here. Then on top of that, one of the colleagues of mine had been sampling here in 2007 and had found what he believed were kimberlite boulders on the ground. Of course, this is an area that's very weathered, it's seen no glaciation, so he wasn't confident that they were kimberlite, but he sent it in for assay, and the kimberlite indicator minerals that were recovered from those rocks returned a chemistry that was very compelling. Again, very reminiscent of what we see at Ekati, and Ekati turned out to be a world-class diamond mine. So that was a very strong evidence for us that there would be a field of kimberlites here, because he got these kimberlite indicator minerals from rocks. And again, if there's no glaciation to move anything around, the only thing moving things around here are wind and water, then that means that those rocks must be local. So we felt pretty confident there must be a field of kimberlites here. We actually found a float or kimberlite boulders in 4 disparate locations separated by kilometers. Again, really focusing us in that there must be a field of diamond-bearing kimberlites here on this project. And you can see, some of the diamonds here have been quite large, including a 1.73 carat stone that was recovered up on that plateau. Well, we have proof of concept of, going in here, we had a pretty strong belief that we had a field of kimberlites likely to be on this project. And as I mentioned, we'd found kimberlite boulders. In the intervening, or since we've discovered those boulders, we now have found rocks that have diamonds in them. That was recovered in April of last year. And then when we went in and did our drill program between July and September of this year, we managed to find the first kimberlite and the first bona fide kimberlite in Australia in more than 25 years. So that's really the proof of concept that we were looking for, that yes, there are kimberlites here, there is likely a field, and we suspect that they are likely to be diamond bearing. This is a little bit about the kimberlite that we discovered. We call it the 1804 kimberlite. Again, it's the first kimberlite that's been discovered in Australia in more than 25 years. The kimberlite itself has now been sent back to Canada. We've done a lot of science on the rock, and it's been sent off to the lab now for diamond testing. And we're waiting for those results. Those results we expect to have, the diamond results, before the middle of December. And that will really set the stage for how we evaluate this kimberlite going forward. And this kimberlite may, in and of itself, be very important. We'll find out from the diamond results if we want to go back and take a larger sample and see if there are macro diamonds and their value. But I think the more important thing about this kimberlite is that it really informs us that there are likely to be kimberlites here, a field of kimberlites, and so we need to spend more time looking for other kimberlite bodies on the project. Lots of discovery potential, as I've mentioned. We're actually flying an airborne survey right now to try and find those kimberlites, and maybe I'll just back up quickly. This is you'll see geophysical signatures on the left, And that really helps us to focus in and find those other kimberlites that are likely on the project. We drilled 5 targets in our first round of drilling. We found 1 kimberlite. I'd like to think that our ability to find additional kimberlites will be improved by now knowing what the geophysical signatures of those kimberlites look like, and that will help us to factor in on other kimberlites on the project. And we already have lots of evidence that there's other kimberlites there. There's indicator minerals around, but again, more importantly, we have those boulders which could not have traveled very far in this environment to really tell us that there are kimberlites and a field of kimberlites on this project. And here's one of our highest priority targets, and this target has the best mineral chemistry of the indicator minerals anywhere on the project. So if we can determine where this kimberlite is, we feel that it's a very high opportunity to have very good quality diamonds and a lot of them. We've taken some bulks or some surface samples of the rocks in the area to help us vector in, and we should be seeing some results from that work over the course of the next few months. I think one of the most important things about Lithoquest is how quickly we've managed to create the company, acquire the project, obtain the funding, become public, and actually make our first discovery all in the course of 2.5 years. That's a remarkable track record, I believe, for any diamond exploration company, and certainly I think speaks well and informs well for our project going forward. Thank you very much.